Very good. So we will move on to our next speaker. Here we go. And we are going to talk about the subject area that Angie was just talking about with the Agility Prime and AFWERX. Unfortunately, we literally had a last minute within the last few hours that Colonel Diller was not able to join us today, but he was able to get his very able, very capable deputy of Major Tekell to join us and to present this concept and all of the new ideas and innovation that is coming out of Agility Prime and the AFWERX program. So I'm going to stop sharing so we can bring Major Tekell on. I see that he is part of, and we just need to unmute him.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Again, thank you. Talk about a last minute step in. I really appreciate your being able to join us today and talk about the really exciting work that Agility Prime is doing with AFWERX.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't see which slides you were pushing. If you don't mind, I'd like to push maybe a different set and speak to those.
Diller didn't provide any slides. So if you have
Okay.
slides, I've stopped sharing. You should be able to share your screen.
Great. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. Really glad to be here with this symposium today and have this opportunity to talk to everyone about AFWERX and then dive into the details of the Agility Prime program. For context, I'm going to go through and give an overview of AFWERX first. It sounded like there were some questions about maybe some potential Air Force programs. Maybe I can dive a little bit into those. Those aren't necessarily the focus of the division and the prime area that I'm going to focus on, but AFVentures and Spark may be some solutions to some smaller companies out there. So as of June 2020, AFWERX has really matured from a startup organization running with some phenomenal ideas with a small team and a small budget. Now the Air Force senior acquisition executive and other Air Force leadership decided it was time to scale up the organization. So with that, AFWERX moved from headquarters Air Force staff, so you see it says transition A8 to AFMC, so that Air Force level staff to the research laboratory under Air Force Materiel Command, AFMC. And the Agility Prime program and Prime concepts was added to the traditional Spark and Ventures concepts, and then we end up with the AFWERX of today. So our mission and vision statements really combine the three main AFWERX divisions, and I'll run through Spark and AFVentures as an overview, and then we can focus on the Prime division and Agility Prime specifically. So in this slide, we see some clip art, right? That shows the Air Force has outstanding talent base, and the industry has the majority of the technology base. And for that matter, industry has the R&D funding base as well, with over 80% of the U.S. research and development. So, but we, the Air Force, also has a system that traditionally does not absorb or utilize this huge commercial investment in R&D. In fact, we have a place for a lot of this technology to go and die, and that's what we refer to as the Valley of Death in DoD acquisitions. So that, yeah, just where the great ideas and technology never really transfer to capability for the warfighter. So AFWERX intends to address this problem. You can start to get a picture of the synergy of the AFWERX divisions with these overlays. If we overlay the Spark program to engage the workforce, the Air Force Ventures program to collaborate with industry, and then the Prime program to focus on specific lines of effort for technology transfer, we end up getting more capability to the warfighter. So we've also added some locations as part of that scale-up effort to include our new sister service down in LA and the Space Force, a focus area for digital engineering in Dayton, Ohio, and to better and more closely coordinate with the Defense Innovation Unit, DIU, up in Silicon Valley. And we'll start off with a quick overview of AFWERX. For those of you who are unaware of the AFWERX programs, they run the Open Topic Small Business Innovation and Research Program, SBIR. So I'm realizing now that the slides are getting clipped in presentation view. Apologize for that. But the Open Topic SBIR program is really where a door for many small companies to come in with their technology and go through a technical evaluation and a business evaluation, and so that the Air Force can kind of determine the feasibility of working with those small companies. And then the AFWERX is also running the supplemental funding pilot program, and also handle strategic investment. So a good amount of funds there. The concept behind AFWERX is, again, to create a lot of small bets for the Air Force to determine the feasibility, like I was talking about with SBIRs and SITRs. That's the Small Business Technology Transition program as well. So there's this SBIR and STTR. Then to make some medium bets with larger fund limits for prototyping, and then scaling products that work with the Air Force customer with Phase 3 SBIR awards. And then this next slide.
Major, your slides are running off. Can you adjust to a different zoom level so we can see the whole slide?
I can try. That was just the presentation mode.
Oh,
it looks like every time I hit present, I think it's the aspect ratio of the slides is probably not the.
Okay, you had it just a second ago. Try whatever you did. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, I can do this.
Maybe you just run it in this. Yeah, you can't see the words so well. But
yeah, it's just it's not cooperating with this aspect ratio of the slides. Apologize for that.
Okay.
I don't think if there is anything important clipped off, I'll have to just brief to it. So here we just show some of the wins from 2020 and some of the goals for 2021. And then what is kind of clipped off there is one of the goals, to have a 5-to-1 return on investment. So for every dollar we're spending on R&D, industry, and commercial investors are spending $5 on that same technology. So the Air Force is greatly leveraging that investment by the commercial side. And then you can see some of the growth in the program here in the slide. For Spark, it's looking to expand and empower our existing talent and cultivate innovation. So you see 7 focus areas here where Spark is using local Spark cells mostly at different Air Force bases, but it's outreach to solicit lots of ideas from lots of people. Spark is investing in our people similar to the way AFWERX is investing in industry. So you can see the small, medium, and the last thing is big bets at the bottom there, where we're focusing on tens of thousands of peoples and ideas in these Spark cells, offering part-time fellowships for a lot less people as a medium bet, and then big bets, creating an entrepreneur capability to bring people in and run a really big, like a moonshot type project. Large scale programs. Here you can see that Spark reaches all corners of the globe, being on those different bases. So really able to get a lot of outreach and touch a lot of different mission sets. Similar to AFWERX, some 2020 metrics and 2021 goals. Really, it's growth. So growing the number of Spark cells so that we reach more people, more ideas. Growing the number of challenges. And being able to handle the larger submission sets from within the Air Force. And so lastly, I've got the prime division here, and we'll focus on this. What's cut off there, it's emerging dual use markets, and that's a primary focus for the prime division, that it's dual military and commercial use cases for the technology we're going after. And that's how we get, that's part of our strategy to achieve a 20-to-1 return on investment in the prime division, leveraging a significant amount of commercial investment from the auto industry mostly, but lots of other venture capital out there putting lots of money into the eVTOL technology in agility prime. So we've got a lot of partnerships. We're coordinating with a lot of folks in industry, the investors, other agencies, the labs, the acquisition community, and also the last but not least the warfighter themselves, bringing them in early and giving them an early look at the technology. So what is Agility Prime? Really, it's being talked about as a third revolution in aerospace, where we see a coalescence of advancements in electric technology, autonomy, and manufacturing technologies. So for electric systems, we went from piston propulsion to jet engine propulsion to now we're looking at the battery technologies, where we can look at all electric propulsion technology. For autonomy, we've gone from stick and rudder, push and pull, to fly-by-wire, and now we're looking at AI and simplified vehicle operations in these aircraft. For manufacturing, which is what most of you are interested in here today, we've gone from sticks and paper in the Wright brother plane to really the metal age with aluminum and titanium, mostly parts. And now we're looking at a lot of these companies have a significant amount of additive manufacturing in safety critical areas of their platforms. So additive manufacturing becoming a very critical piece to enable the eVTOL world. And if you're looking at the upper right picture, that's a picture of one of our one-seater aircraft called the Hexa, produced by a company called Lyft in Austin, Texas. There are some other more like 4 to 5 passenger or cargo type aircraft. You saw one on the previous slide. You see one on the bottom left there is in the same category. The bottom left is the Alia 250 produced by Beta Technologies in Vermont, and the previous one was the S4 produced by Joby out in California. And the Joby aircraft all of these are really far into flight test right now. These aren't concepts on paper. These aren't these are real aircraft in real flight test programs and moving very quickly. And it's really not the right term, but because none of these aircraft are meant to be on the road, but these are flying cars. This is the flying car concept. So that's what Agility Prime really is. Why are we doing it? We have an opportunity to, we the military, the Air Force, have an opportunity to accelerate this industry by helping build the domestic industrial base, because this is supposed to be, Morgan Stanley predicted a $1.5 trillion market, I think it was by 2040. So we want to build a domestic industrial base so we don't repeat the mistakes that we made in the small drone industry, where we're now trying to catch up to companies like DJI in China who dominate the market. The process, so we have an opportunity with Agility Prime to change contracting processes, to change certification processes, to handle budgets a little bit differently. So it's an opportunity to improve acquisitions for the Air Force. And then the product, we can field a new air mobility system by 2023, looking at over 20 use cases that we can use these as is commercial vehicles for military operations. And we're developing those in detail. So how do we do those things? Risk reduction. So we're doing technical risk reduction by providing government resources to test and evaluation ranges, to providing test and evaluation equipment and SMEs, subject matter experts, trying to reduce the regulatory risk by introducing the military airworthiness process, which is a risk-based review of these platforms, giving them a lot more than an FAA experimental certification to see where the companies can mature and do more tests and gather more information to reduce the risk towards certification, type certification with the FAA. And one of those risks is additive manufacturing. Well, there's not a whole lot of confidence from the airworthiness teams in additive manufacturing, especially in those safety critical areas that I was mentioning before. What else are we doing? Financial risk. We're investing in these companies. It may be a lot smaller than what commercial investments are doing, but we're providing confidence to the investment core within the U.S. By being able to look at all these companies doing these airworthiness evaluations and providing levels of funding, leveraging the AFWERX program. In just over a year since we've launched the program, we've set up and had 27 companies come through our air race to certification. 3 companies have actually it's 2 companies have completed the airworthiness process and flown for the Air Force, and then there are I believe 4 more in the queue. So of the 27 companies making it through, only a couple making it to the airworthiness process, but now flying on Air Force contracts. We've been able to award over $100 million in contracts, leveraging SBIR money, phase 2 awards, and then we had the open topic STTR that ended up with 254 STTR contracts. So that's the small businesses looking for a front door to the Air Force, applying to these STTRs, going through an evaluation, and us saying, yes, we're interested in your technology. We're interested in your technology for Agility Prime, and let's give you an opportunity to walk through your capability with a phase 1, try to match you with a company or a partner through collider events, through trade shows, through just open communications, so we can partner you with these other startups and have the opportunities to work with the Air Force. There's been co-investment over $1 billion in commercial investment in several of these companies. They've also some of them have gone public, receiving valuations in order of magnitude of $6 billion. We partnered with Air Education Training Command to develop training for operators of these vehicles, to develop training for the maintainers of these vehicles. And then we've actually had hardware delivered. So there's multiple lift hexes. There's a charging station. There's simulators that have been delivered to Springfield, Ohio, and are in the works of delivering more aircraft. Let me go back and just talk to the potential missions real quick. So a lot of interest in search and rescue. That's the CSAR acronym there, is combat search and rescue. And then we have distributed logistics, emergency response, and even firefighting. So a lot of interest out of California in using these to help get people and equipment to help fight fires. And then what do we want to do with other prime programs? So we have Agility Prime. What does the next prime look like? And these were the 6 other opportunities. And I'll just read what's cut off there. For Energy Prime, looking for novel energy generation, advanced storage, and alternative transport. For Vector Prime, that's supersonic transport with hybrid propulsion and quiet supersonic designs. Then there's the microelectronics prime potential, improved performance, secure technology, and anti-tamper. Then the other ones are there available for you to read. But the idea is that there has to be commercial dual use case and strong investor commercial investment in these areas for them to proceed as a prime. So these are all concepts as of right now. I think space prime has been chosen to move on as to be the next prime, and the others are still undergoing a series of more we're looking at them more closely, more study. That's really where I was going to end and go to questions, if there are any questions.
Thank you. What a great presentation and what an amazing program. I have a quick question. Okay, so we have Angie who spoke, and I guess she's at the Pentagon and headquarters. And then we have AFRL, Air Force Research Lab, which we're going to hear Tim next talk about. So how does AFWERX fit in to the puzzle?
So AFWERX is now a directorate within AFRL. However, it is also, the director is a direct report to the senior executive of the acquisition senior executive. So it was Dr. Roper. Now we have an intern at SAF-AQ, ATNL. So Mr. Bunning is on and said he'd like to answer that, actually. Go for it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I was just going to add to it. I mean, so in the Air Force, there's a term called operational control and administration control. We call those two OPCON and ADCON. So right now, AFWERX, as the major stated, fits in AFRL. They're part of AFRL. They're a functional directorate. They get their ADCON, organize, train, and equip, from General Pringle and the group that I'll discuss here in a little bit. Their OPCON, where they get their strategic guidance and go-dos, has historically been the SAE, the Senior Acquisition Executive, who is Angie's boss. With the administration change, you know, we'll see how all of this plays out. But that's the current model right now. Over.
Oh, thank you. That has been confusing to me. Now I understand why. Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate it. Other questions for AFWERX and Agility Prime and Space Prime that you just threw out there? Just unmute yourself if you have a question and you're on WebEx. Or Kathy, do we have any questions coming in from the YouTube feed?
So far, just one question. Will the slides be available to the participants?
Yes, they will be.
Thank you.
Anyone out there want to ask a question?
Yes, this is Marshall Wright. He alluded to the fact that they were working with the FAA such that they would not repeat the faults that ended up with small UAS. How is that going?
So I think I was specifically referencing the Chinese company DJI's capture of the market overseas, and the Air Force then had to develop and develop a domestic capability for military use and operations. And we were way behind the power curve, and still are in the market compared to DJI and their capabilities. And we didn't want that to happen in this new emerging field of eVTOL, and then have to catch up again. So we are currently the leaders and have U.S. companies are definitely leading these efforts. There are several international companies that are doing pretty well. They have their own companies. The Chinese EHang, the Germans have two companies. I think they have Polycopter and Lilium, but there's lots of international competition as well. But I think the American companies are definitely the leaders in this case. As far as interacting with the FAA, absolutely. So that's part of our interagency coordination, coordinating with NASA, coordinating with the FAA on issues like airspace management, on issues like public acceptance, on certification. The FAA is definitely being very responsive, and I think they've learned and are starting to adapt to the needs of a rapid changing and a third revolution in aviation, like I was talking about. So we're in close coordination with them. For example, we have these simulators that are being set up, and the FAA is going to come to these simulators to fly the aircraft to better understand their handling qualities, their safety features, their just how they fly in general, because there's a lot of different concepts out there, but you can go fly the individual sims and get a bigger picture of what's going on. Thanks for the question. Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, very good. Chanel Flores, who is Deputy Director of UAMI now, would you ask our question that we've been wrestling with about getting composites certified?
Yeah, so one of the questions we have is around the certification process of new materials. It's oftentimes an expensive process for, a smaller company to be able to look at certifying new materials. And so we were just wondering, what is being done around, you talked about certification of airworthiness, but what is being done around certification of new materials? And do those new materials, are you guys looking to require the digital thread behind them?
So I think our support of the STTR process and our investments in research of any companies looking to do the certification processes is the level of depth that the Agility Prime program is participating in that specifically. So if a company is struggling with that, what they would do is propose to the Air Force the steps they need, and we would help fund that effort through an STTR or through an SBIR. And that's really looking to for the commercial and industry to engage the Air Force on the topic versus the other way around.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Major Tekell. First of all, for stepping in so aptly at the last minute. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing more about AFWERX and Agility Prime and all of the great work that you're doing. We're going to have to move on to Mr. Bunning's presentation on AFRL. But again, I thank you and thank everyone for your questions.